Yeah, my conception of information design is something that, as far as it can, releases you from the tyranny of linearity. So what language happens in time? It's a linear string, and de Saussure, one of the sort of founders of linguistics, had this concept that language had what he calls syntagmatic relations within it. I'll come back, and associative relations. And what this means is that if I take the word, the cat sat on the mat. Well, the mat has a syntagmatic relationship with the cat sat on there. It's part of the string. And then if the next word is she got up and went outside, she refers back to the cat. So you've got these anaphoric and cataphoric, which means I never know which way around, going forward or going back. Yeah. You basically have to address your memory of what was said before to work out what she refers to. So that's how a lot of language is all about, dealing with linearity, dealing with the fact that I've got to say one thing before I can say another. There's the beginning of the sentence, the end of the sentence, the next sentence, Yeah. And I can set up a structure in your head by saying, there are three things I want to say. Firstly, blah, 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 blah. And you're waiting for secondly and thirdly. So these are sort of ways in which rhetoric is a memory tool. Writing is a memory tool.
Yeah.
Associative relationships are different. So that's the cat sat on the mat. The mat, it sat on the mat, not the rug, not the floor, not the chair. So when you say the cat sat on there, you're waiting for something the cat could sit on.
Obviously, if you're dyslexic, some of it breaks down. If you're autistic, some of that breaks down. But do you know if there's been any research to identify which bits of that break down for which type of group?
Well, there probably has, but I don't know about it. I mean, I think there's a lot of research on dyslexia, on the brain, and what bits of the brain do. And what we could say is that if you look at reading, it involves all these different psychomotor and psycholinguistic, motor meaning your eyes moving about, mechanisms and interactions. That's what reading research is about. And I haven't kept up with it over the years, but what strikes me is that these different forms of diversity must affect different aspects of those things. I mean, the remarkable thing about dyslexia is I don't understand why any of us should be able to read anyway. I mean, how on earth did we evolve that? How on earth did we manage to get language out of marks? So somebody who's dyslexic seems to me to be perfectly normal, because it just seems such an outrageous thing that somehow there was writing. The point is that their difficulty, I think, is getting from word shapes, distinguishing between easily confused ones and rotated ones and that sort of thing. And most people have tried different fonts for them, and as far as I can see, I keep reading these papers, and they all come up with a different font. So I'm thinking, I think there's a lot of diversity within that group. The point about, as I understand it, if you're dyslexic, an awful lot of your cognitive capacity is going on deciphering, or if you're just a poor reader, if you're learning to read, you're spending a lot of your limited working memory in trying to decipher what it says, and you don't have that much left. And again, I might be naive that whenever I think I understand something, some other study comes in and blows it out of the water. But the idea of cognitive capacity would be that if you're a fluent reader, I'm a fluent reader, and I think you're a fluent reader, we've got a lot of capacity left for something called metacognition, which is watching ourselves read and realizing that we're either understanding it or not understanding it.
Yes.
And if we're a skilled strategic reader, we can read a paragraph and say, hang on, I didn't get that. Go back and reread it. Or that's interesting. I will stop now and make a note of and compare with this other book. All that requires you to be, I'm not sure what the verb is from metacognition, but watching yourself reading and monitoring your understanding.
I think the role of the UWI is to filter all of the important information in a very careful way, so we don't lose the grains of sand that are then undervaluing the work that's been done.
Yeah.
We can then aggregate these different sources into something coherent. And in the case of this information design, and from what you explained, I could imagine if we could simply signpost some of the things that if you are dyslexic, this is likely to be the sort of problem that you're experiencing. Oh, what are they?
They're my theory flashcards.
I love them. I love them.
So just as you said about condensing things, I run a summer school every year. The information on summer school, done it for about 10 years now. I'm about to stop probably. Yeah. One of the things we do there is I believe in theory, but I only believe in it to a certain degree. What we do in the summer school, which is only a week, and it does seem to, it goes on really well. People love it, and sort of even kind of slightly change career as a result. Yeah. What we do the first day is we all bring in documents. Sorry about the rambling here, but you'll have to.
No. I love it. Listen, it's like free value for me.
Well, I think the point is these conversations, they're brainstorms, and
they are. Yeah,
we'll arrive somewhere. But so I get people to bring in documents that they love and documents they hate, and we then try and explain them. Why they work and why they don't work. I mean, for one thing, we try and see if we agree as a group whether they do work or not. Yeah. And then we try and explain it. And the way we try and explain it is through theory. We have a card called framing, for example. It's the first one coming to my head. And framing is about, well, there's a lovely example I saw the other day. There's a Dutch bicycle company called Van Moof. And Van Moof export their bikes to the USA and realized that an awful lot of bikes were arriving damaged. Their solution, I have a picture somewhere. Imagine a bike comes in a big cardboard box. They printed a picture of a TV on the box, implying that there was a TV inside the box, not a bike. Yeah. And they reduced the damages by about 80%. Treat this bike as you would a TV. Pick it up carefully. Don't chuck it over the fence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And this behavioural design stuff is getting really clever.
Oh yeah. That's framing.
Coming from. Yeah.
And we've got a lot of them. So relevance theory, strategic affordance, all these things, and we sort of explain them. And most of them have a key reference at the bottom where you can go and read more if you want to get into the science. Yeah. But these things really sort of help and give you something to grasp onto, that someone has thought of this, they've researched it, there's an idea here. There's a set of, the original set of theory flashcards is to do with social and political theory. Yeah. And they're kind of jokey. They're a bit like when Pokemon cards were fashionable, were trendy among kids. Each Pokemon character, or Transformers, these sort of people, they would all have special powers. Yeah. And so there'd be a flashcard for Karl Marx. Yeah. Special power,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Brilliant. I love it.
Lighting the proletariat or something. So I copied that. The whole thing about accessibility in design is I see it as a real problem area for my approach, because so I run my summer school. Yeah. And a lot of it's about this release from linearity. I'm really talking about quite mundane things like illustrated books, and things which have layout. And the idea is that the model of reading is your eye sort of there's a lot that you can get at a glance. You can see the structure at a glance. You might be able to see the most important thing at a glance. Yeah. And then within that, you can perhaps tell there's some genre differences, like this works like a user guide where it's about tasks and numbered steps, and this one more like a magazine, and I can browse it.
One of the things I've learned with Mason and autism and Asperger's is that the way that their brain that the brain works for Mason is he can, if I use that analogy, he can look at the words or he can see the picture.
Right.
But they can only
do the picture. You don't mean you mean literal image.
Like if it's a picture book, he can see the words and then he can reference the picture, but he can't see the words in the picture. When he's talking to somebody and trying to understand them and what they're saying, we naturally have these snap in our brain where we're looking at what are they doing with their mannerisms? What are they doing with their tone of voice?
Okay, yes.
But then if you're Asperger's, you can look at one of those things.
But no, I get the analogy. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It just feels like you need to almost state things in several ways for different people. And so one of my design things I've been talking about a lot is layering.
Yeah.
So this is another set of parentheses, which is that one of the things I've been very involved with the last possibly 10 years is business contract design.
Right.
Okay, so this is where working with inspirational woman in Finland called Helena Hapio, and she's an arbitration lawyer, and she's one of the people associated with a new idea of the law called proactive law. Business contracts used to be handshakes, and business people would write things down, but then lawyers got involved and made them adversarial documents rather than cooperative ones. And the idea of a proactive approach is that your contract is so clear. Many contracts are written, and the main audience is the judge when it comes to litigation and when things go wrong. Because of course things go wrong because people don't understand the contract. So if you have a clear contract, it's proactive. People now understand their rights and their responsibilities. When there's an issue, they can go to the contract, and very, very clearly, each party can get the same view from the contractor, who's who's responsible for what, or who's liable. Part of that, in doing that, I've been going on about layering for years, using Rupert Bear as the main analogy, actually, and I call it the Rupert principle. Where you talk to two audiences at once. Creative Commons have a 3-layer copyright agreement.
Right.
One is machine read. That's also kind of anticipating AI, where it's coded. The next one is the legally worded. The next one is human readable.
Right.
And so you can sometimes present your client with the legal version and the human readable version, which is kind of quite rude to lawyers, suggesting they're not human. But that's a challenge to them. I mean, what they often do is they say, "Oh, we can't do that. We can only have one version," and then they start to make their one more human readable.
Yes.
They sort of get it. Why? A typical little thing is, why do I need to say? I mean, if you think about a tenancy agreement, they say things like, you must not. Don't make any noise, or it'll have some sort of list. It'll say something like including but not limited to. It'll have musical instruments, pianos, loud hi-fi. It goes on in a long list, and then you think, well, if you're going to list them all, you should have elephants and marching band, explosives. Why not just say, you mustn't make a noise that might disturb your neighbors?
Absolutely.
So that proliferates. So this layering strategy is something that, as we're talking, I'm thinking this is really interesting, because you might think, instead of just lawyers and humans, you might think someone who's dyslexic, someone who's has attention problems, or whatever it might be. I started to say how I think there's a problem for information design with all this, because I'm so into layout and spatial arrangements, and I'm quite anti, this idea that everything should be digital and everything should be smartphone friendly, because most internet usage is on the smartphone now. So, for example, the government digital service as I understand it, they treat it's mobile first, so everything needs to work on a smartphone, and you can work up from there. This means you can't have diagrams, you can't have illustrations. You had to do it all in numbered steps or words. And I thought, that's really retrograde, that's really regressive, or whatever word is that.
It's a shame, because I remember you had a proposal that you showed me, which was a kind of an A3 size on your office when we met in your offices one time, and that almost it was game changing for me. It made me realize really how impactful information design can be. You know,
I probably told you that one of the reasons for that was, so you can get more on the page.
yeah.
And also A3 requires a different style of reading. You don't sit in an armchair and read it. You read it on a desk and you look at it.
Yeah, yeah.
But also, you can't file it easily. And this meant that it was designed, and we also used to, long after we didn't have to, we used to leave big, when I first started designing, we used to have I guess A2, even A1.
Yeah, A2 was massive.
Big portfolio.
Yeah.
A2, big portfolio. We go into a massive portfolio, show them the work. We put it, every office would have a shelf along the side. You could prop up your boards on. And then, of course, after that, they would go into the marketing director's office and they'd sit in the corner.
Yeah.
And people would come into the office and say, "Oh, is that the new presentation? Was that the new logo? Is that the new bill design?"
Yeah.
Whereas if it was in a PowerPoint on an email,
you never see it. If mobile phones now start to have projectors built within them, which is likely to be the next logical step of
that's really interesting.
Social operating systems. And when I was writing that, I was saying, actually, Star Trek had it right, didn't they? Because when they actually came up with this little, look at actually what's happening with technology. You kind of realize the only thing I need to carry with me is my identity on the digital sphere.
Okay. Yeah.
Because anything else that requires space, size, or touch can be projected, reflected, added, seen. But the one thing you cannot replace is the need for you to identify who you are and where you are. So, but anything else now can go onto the cloud. So the data that you hold on your phone, you don't need it on your phone. It could be in the cloud. The screen,
it could be anywhere, but it's the way I view it that worries me.
Yeah. So if you could project that, all of a sudden,
like a hologram, something that.
Yeah, information design is back, because all of a sudden you can take that and project it up there. So I think it's interesting that we could be going full circle on that, Rob, which is probably good for your industry. There's no question.
I wonder. I mean, what I was I know not quite getting there is, at the summer school, people often ask me, well, what about the visually impaired people?
Yeah.
And you read, and I've had government departments tell me the RNIB used to want everything to be in 14-point, everything for everybody. They wanted everybody to have equal treatment. Well, 14-point type is massive, but and I've got a cousin who's partially sighted, quite badly partially sighted, and his life, I don't know what he does now, but he used to have a digital camera in the early days of them, which have a screen on the back. He would take a photograph of something and hold it up to it like this to read it. And so he can now enlarge things as much as he wants on an iPad or something, to really large lettering. Anyway, but the point is that whole thing sort of destroys layout.
With the Universal Workforce Institute, what we're trying to do is to create the 14-point font, in the sense that it's kind of an inclusive, everybody else is included at that point.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about organizational design of behavior, of system processes, in many respects, what we're trying to do is to create that 14-point font for everybody, so that nobody is precluded. Because again, inevitably, that then creates this knock-on effect, doesn't it? You say, well, it might not be as good for other people because you're doing that.
It may be that, I suppose what it means is that if everything has to be, I mean, literally 14-point type, it kind of destroys everything I do. I can't help you.
Yeah.
You're basically you're back to linear language pretty much.
Yeah.
Or not saying very much at all. Which is often a good thing.
Yeah, not for you and I, though. We wouldn't have any careers.
I think possibly because things have gone digital, that now everything's available digitally. It's not an issue anymore. You can enlarge the type on your own device.